Alright, this is a Y-axis power feed I come up with. And what it's based on is Lee Peden's setup for the X-axis power feed. This is my half-ass version of it, and he did a lot better job. He makes the 10 barn videos. Okay, I want to start right here. I wanted originally to mount this plate back solid against there, but if I'd have done that, I'd have had to come up with something to get rid of this bearing block, but I had to get something in there to trap that lead screw. And I didn't want to alter the end of the lead screw out here, and I'll explain to you in just a minute why I didn't. Right here are these mountain screws. They're 6mm threads. I retapped them 1/4 by 20, and you don't need to re-drill. The 1/4 inch tap will follow to cut that thread in there just as good as can be. And this is 1/2 inch round stock I drilled through for a spacer to get it out to where I want to set a 1/4 inch all thread and go in there. These spacers are 3/8 aluminum, and I drilled through them. I tapped it here for number 10 by 24 and used 10 by 24 all thread on those, and the same on the motor. And this motor's just like this one and this one. They're a 12-volt motor, and they use a computer power supply to get my 12 volts. If you watch Lee's video, if you don't know how to do it and you want to use that, his video explains it. And there's some bunch of others on YouTube that'll explain to you how it's easy as pie to wire up. This is like a momentary switch that you use to jog it, but it ain't a very good idea. I don't know, I just had to put it on there, but it don't work too good. In my view, you can do it just as easy with this switch right here. But you still got to be awful quick to jog it, because it'll take off with you. Now, right here, it looks like 3 flat washers. The 2 outside ones are pretty much the same as the flat, but that center one is a bearing cage. It's a needle thrust bearing. And if you don't know what a needle thrust bearing is, it's a roll of bearings laid out in a pattern like spokes on a wagon wheel. And what that does, let me turn this a little bit. It allows, there you can see the nut there on the end of the lead screw. That's the original nut off that bearing allows you to draw the slop up in that and get it snug down so there's no play, but yet it still turns smooth. And you want to draw down so your lead screw ain't walking back and forth on you. Of course, and this socket's an 18mm. It's big enough. It's not going to catch that nut and yank it loose. And what these holes here are for, I'll put them in there. And I use an Allen wrench to use for a fine feed, to turn it, to do some fine adjustment, or you want to get that last little bit where you need it to be. You can turn that. And most of the time you're going to have to turn it to get that hex lined up to get your socket on there. There it is. But I think what I'm going to do one of these days is mill me out like an open-end wrench just to use on the flats. I think it'd work a lot better than fooling with that Allen wrench. And the reason I didn't want to alter that lead screw, if you'd ever want to go back to the original setup, you just take these 2 7/16 nuts of a 1/4 inch actually, take them off, and everything from this plate out pulls off as a unit, come right off of there. Then you slide this hex off the shaft, slide your bearing off, put your original dial back on with your increments, put your hand wheel back on, put the nut, and you're right back to the original setup. Now, look right there, see that groove? That's it right there on the original hammer. That's what I used there. When I cut that hex off, I used the center portion or the hub or whatever you want to call it. And the reason I did, because it's already machined to fit exactly. That keyway is exactly where it needs to be, the exact size. This right here, this surface right here, is right there. I just chopped the excess meat away with the hacksaw, then turned it, then milled the hex into it. Okay, let's try him here. That's all there is to it. Now, something else. I've seen people posting, talking about they're afraid the mill's going to upset. They want to bolt it down to the bench. And it will upset easy. It's just this base is on there. That's why I use 2x3 square tubing. And here's 1/2-inch carriage bolts. And back here, as you see, it's a good bit. You get a much wider stance back here out of it. And it's setting on 3 points. And the thing is, if you bolt this to the bench, if your bench is warped or twisted, it's going to put a stress on the base of your machine. It's going to want to twist it. Whereas with this 3 points, it don't matter how messed up your bench is, it's going to set with no stress on it, and it's going to set solid. You know, you could set it in the dirt, and it would still set solid. And I think another advantage to having that on there, at least in my view, right here, you've got all this room. Easy to clean the chips out, or if you drop anything in there, it's plenty of room. And if you need to move it, it ain't bolted fast, you can move it. But I took those, I don't know can't remember what the hell they call them, like the rubber gaiters, like whatever. I just took them the hell off of there. I found them to be a pain in the ass. But that's it, and it's as simple as pie.